On this episode of ReLiterated, if you were a kid in the 90s, you know this story. The story of a gifted little girl with massive brain power. She could read every book in the library at the age of 5. She could solve any math problem you give her in her head like a human calculator. And she could even use her mind to move things with only a thought. And woe to any grown-up who got on her bad side, for she is a kid's revenge fantasy incarnate. Also, the book that the movie is based on is pretty good too. We read Matilda on ReLiterated, the podcast that wonders what the world record is for longest throw of a 5-year-old girl in pigtails. Welcome to ReLiterated, the lowbrow book club of grown-ass adults discussing the books read by children in the 1990s, but with 2020's hindsight. Fair warning, we use language too mature for kids, analysis too immature for literary scholars, and ignorance too profound to be inoffensive to everyone. We also don't hold back on spoilers, so if you haven't read today's book and don't want to be spoiled, read it before listening. You've been warned. My name's Andy.
I'm Harold.
And I'm Josh.
And I don't know if we're really going to spoil today's book because a lot of people have read it. I mean, maybe I'm just biased because I read it and so I assume that everyone's read it. But yeah, today's episode is on Matilda by Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
I would say if you haven't read it, you've watched the movie.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it was a pretty popular movie released in '96, starring Mara Wilson and featuring Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman too. So that was pretty good. Really good movie. Really good kids movie.
It was actually directed by Danny DeVito.
And directed by Danny DeVito too. Yeah.
Yep.
Was that his directorial debut?
Oh, Jesus, Josh, we don't know.
Who knows?
I don't know. That's why I asked the question.
I didn't know Danny DeVito directed it until I saw a TikTok 8 months ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I may have seen the same one where it talks about like a really good warm-hearted moments between Danny DeVito and Mara Wilson. Didn't Mara Wilson lose a parent?
No, she was scared to dance in front of all the people. And so Danny DeVito started dancing and told everybody else to dance. So that whole scene where she's dancing around and using her powers off screen, Danny DeVito and the cameraman and the people holding the mics and everybody are all dancing with her.
Yeah, one of those feel-good stories.
Yep.
Danny DeVito's a good guy.
He seems like it, at least.
Seems like it, yep.
Oh, for sure.
But anyways, started blasting.
Yep.
But Matilda, the book by the opposite of Danny DeVito, was published first in 1988, which seems pretty recent for a Roald Dahl book.
Yeah, seems as Charlie came out in the 60s, and I mean, he was still releasing stuff, even in the late 80s, which is crazy to me. But I mean, if you're good at writing children's books, you just keep doing it, I guess.
I mean, he died 2 years later.
2 years after publishing Matilda?
Yep, he died in 1990.
Wow.
Was this the last one he did? Or did he get a couple more off before leaving this mortal coil? That would be a good research project. Holy shit, Wikipedia article has a lot of shit about Roald Dahl. Well,
there's literally a lot of shit about him because he's a shithead. But
his last book was published in 1991 after he died. It was Billy and the Minpin.
Well, all right.
Might have to look into that. I've never heard of that.
Neither have I.
But Matilda, we're pretty familiar with it. Would you say that this is maybe his second most famous story after Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, or best known? Or do you think something like James and the Giant Peach might have it beat?
So James and the Giant Peach, I know, is Roald Dahl. And again, I didn't even realize that Matilda was Roald Dahl until we went to read it. I had thought Matilda was just the movie from the 90s.
You thought the movie came first?
I thought the movie was standalone. I didn't know there was a book.
Oh, okay.
Until we were gonna read it. We started talking about it. We talked about it a years ago or a couple years ago when we were doing this, and I was like, even then I was like, there's a book?
Matilda? There's a book? Most movies are, based on a book. A lot of them are comic books, but most popular movies, start off as books.
Really? So the Terminator started off as a book, Andy?
Well, that was written, both of those were written by James Cameron, so.
Oh, so sometimes movies don't have books. and it's not so crazy that I might have thought.
Sometimes they don't.
All I'm saying.
But a movie about books probably was a book first.
Are there books in the movie?
There's books in the movie. There's books in the story.
That's not the important part, though. She's got superpowers.
The books are one of the most important parts of the story.
We can agree to disagree.
I don't know. Reading is pretty much an essential element to this story, and at any rate.
Yes, agreed. She does like reading.
Before we get into the story of Matilda, I believe since we've covered Roald Dahl to death and what he's said and done, we have a bit of news related to Roald Dahl that isn't directly Roald Dahl related. Josh, why don't you give us that update?
So here's the Dahl report. There's a new movie coming out, the Willy Wonka movie. It is called Wonka. It is a prequel starring Timothée Chalamet as Wonka. And for our listeners, there will be a novelization written by Sybil Pounder, released by Puffin Books on December 15th. So,
Pounder.
Yeah, but she's a children's author and she's done a few books and they really like her. So they said that she would be a great person and will probably write in the same style as Dahl. So here's maybe we will cover it, probably not, but you never know.
I just got a question. If this is a prequel, so it's going to be like what happened with Wonka before he had the chocolate factory, I'm guessing?
It's him like discovering, like basically him becoming a chocolatier.
Okay.
And then discovering discovering the Oompa Loompas, and also like how him and Slugworth, they have that competition. They might do a little bit into that, like explaining like his rivalry with Slugworth. So
I watched the trailer and there seems to be a lot involved in Willy Wonka taking on the chocolate cartel. I'm not making this up. There's a chocolate cartel,
which I believe Slugworth is like the head of that.
Slugworth is probably part of that cartel that try to keep him down, but gosh darn it, Willy Wonka is just so charismatic that his chocolate takes over the world. So this probably explains why all those other chocolate companies wanted to take him down and learn his secrets and all that rot.
The other chocolate companies have to pay workers because Wonka has slaves. That's his big secret. So
that's his big secret.
When she writes that part, I wonder how she's going to deal with the acquisition of human beings for labor.
There are Oompa Loompas in the movie. One of them is played by Hugh Grant.
I believe are they all going to be played by Hugh Grant? Kind of like they did with the last Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
They only showed one in the trailer.
That's true.
He was kind of like, Timothée Chalamet was kind of talking to him. He was like under this glass container or whatever, and he started dance. Hugh Grant Oompa Loompa started dancing. So I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna do the same thing that Tim Burton did and made them all played by the same actor. That was kind of weird.
All it says is Hugh Grant Oompa Loompa.
Huh. Okay. So maybe they are doing a Deep Roy kind of thing with the Oompa Loompas again.
Yeah.
They weren't all the same people in the Gene Wilder version.
Correct. But they were using little people. So
they were using little people.
Another regular actor taking away work from little people.
Taking away the job of the little guys. Like literal little guys.
Terrible. That's why they're on strike. One of the many reasons. So that is one of the things. The other news I have is Matilda the musical is out on Netflix. It is an adaptation of the screenplay, and I have not watched it yet, but we can watch it for the ReLiterated.
Josh, all movies are adaptation of screenplays.
Yeah.
Yes. Good point. Adaptation of
the Broadway musical.
Stage play.
The stage play.
The stage play on from Broadway.
Yes, the Broadway stage play, which is now off Broadway and is, starting to be picked up by community theaters here and there. So there's a chance I may be playing an Oompa Loompa in the future. I don't know.
Ooh, that'd be great. I would love to see you as an Oompa Loompa.
Yeah, you'll come out to see me if I make it into Matilda. No, wait, no, this is Matilda.
I'll live there.
There's no Oompa Loompas in Matilda the musical. God damn it.
Dang. Well,
this is why you don't podcast sober.
You can be the dad.
I'll be the dad in Matilda. Yep. Which brings us back to Matilda.
Yes.
God damn it, let's cover Matilda.
We've been talking about Matilda. You were talking about the Broadway stage play that's now off Broadway, so it could be stage played at stages all near us.
I was still in Wonka land. We were talking about that Wonka movie, and I got stuck. But there's no Oompa Loompas in Matilda.
No. Matilda is the size of an Oompa Loompa, though.
She's about
According
the
to the
size
illustrations
of
yes.
an Oompa Loompa. Yeah. Would you say that it's an appropriate time to pull a Bob's Your Uncle?
Yes. Yeah, we can do a Bob's Your Uncle.
Well, great. Here's Harold with the Bob's Your Uncle summary of Matilda.
All right. Have you seen the movie Matilda? Bob's Your Uncle. That's Matilda. All right.
Watch the movie and you have the Bob's Your Uncle.
Yeah. All right.
Great summary.
So Matilda is a 4-year-old girl that is way beyond her years in intelligence and ability, and she is different than her family. Her family, they hate reading. They're very against intellectualism, and the dad is a car dealer who wheels and deals with nasty tricks on people so that he can get their money without spending any money on the cars. And her mom stays at home and has decided to go with looks over smarts, and just is happy with what she gets from what her husband, Mr. Wormwood, brings home. Matilda loves to read books, but after she's read all the books in the house, which don't amount to much more than hair books and whatnot that her mom has around magazines, she asks her dad to buy her a book. He says no, so she starts going to the library. And she goes to the library and just starts reading book after book. First, she starts with children's books, and then when the librarian realizes that those are too easy for her, because she basically tells her that, she moves on to more adult books, and at one point is reading a John Steinbeck book called The Pink Horse. Is that what it is? I think so. Yeah, I think it's called The Pink Horse.
The Red Pony?
Red Pony, that's what it is. Red Pony. That's better. So anyhow, she's reading this book, and her dad sees her reading the book, and he basically tells her he doesn't want her to read that stuff, and he rips the book in half. And Matilda decides at this point that she's going to play a little trick on her dad. So she super glues his hat to his head, which is a great scene in the movie, if you haven't seen the movie. And then, so she starts, they get her into school because she just really needs to go. And she gets down there, and there is Mrs. Trenchbull is the headmistress, and her teacher is Miss Honey. No, her teacher wasn't Miss Honey at the start. She was in the little kids class. And she is clearly smart. She knows all of her times tables all the way up. And then it continues on further. She knows more and more of the multiplication tables, or just random numbers. Basically, she eats information out of books. She knows math. She says it at one point that she figures if a calculator can do it, she ought to be able to, a pocket calculator. And as time goes by, you start to find that Mrs. Trunchbull is just this very awful woman who hates all children and wishes all children would act like adults. Actually, I got to tell you, Mrs. Trunchbull is basically Roald Dahl. And then Miss Honey, though, is her teacher. It is her teacher. And she starts noticing she wants Matilda to move up in class because she thinks she's too smart to be at the bottom class. And Mrs. Trunchbull feels like Mrs. Honey is trying to get rid of the girl because she's too hard, because Miss Trunchbull buys a car from Mr. Wormwood, and Mr. Wormwood, who talks nothing but horrid trash about his own daughter, told Miss Trunchbull that, yeah, Matilda was awful. A lot of stuff happens here. Josh would probably call it filler. But basically what it comes down to is Matilda finds out that Trunchbull is Miss Honey's aunt, and that Trunchbull has essentially taken her home and taken everything from her after her father died, and very possibly by making a false will or a letter from her father. And so Matilda discovers that she has powers one day when she's super angry with her dad, and she spills some water over. And as this goes on, she practices with a cigar. She feels like she's moving stuff with her eyes by looking at it, and eventually she decides, she comes up with this plan and writes a note on the chalkboard to Miss Trunchbull while she's teaching their class that it's her brother Magnus and that she needs to give back all the stuff to his daughter. And Miss Trunchbull has a nervous breakdown and leaves. And Miss Honey ends up getting all of her stuff that was hers to begin with, because the will comes in the mail a couple days later. Mr. Wormwood decides that they got to leave the country because he's working with criminals and it's time to go. And Matilda asks if she can live with Miss Honey, which her parents don't really like her anyways, so they give her up fairly easily. And Bob's your uncle. She lives happily ever after without powers anymore because she doesn't need them with Miss Honey. That's Matilda. There's a lot that happens, and it's like there's things that I want to say are more important than others, but I kept finding myself needing to kind of ride to the end of it because I don't want to give away all the little things.
There's a lot in the story, and it's not filler. It's all very good, entertaining stuff. It all has to do with the story of her becoming Matilda.
It really does. And I was, again, it's funny because I'm going back and forth in my head as I'm trying to remember the story, and I'm getting scenes from the movie that play out exactly as in the book in my head.
Right. I think there was a couple moments in there where you were confused by what happened in the movie versus what happened in the book.
I think so, yeah.
A couple minor details, like she first gets mad and her powers manifest while she's in class, and Miss Trunchbull is yelling at her.
Okay.
So like she knocks over the glass that has the newt in it because another classmate is pulling a prank on Miss Trunchbull, which, by the way, these kids are very like bravely doing things to Miss Trunchbull, who you do not want to mess with.
No, doesn't she fucking hammer throw one of the kids?
Yeah.
Yep, sure does.
Grabs the little girl by the pigtails just because she hates pigtails and just like winds up and throws her over the fence or something.
I'm pretty sure that happens in the movie as well.
I think so too, yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
you know what? I wasn't confused by the movie or the book. I was just confused at that moment because after I said that it was her dad, I was like, I'm pretty sure it was in class with Miss Trunchbull. So
okay. And I haven't seen the movie in forever, so I don't remember if her powers ever happened at home aside from when she was practicing for the big one to pull on Miss Trunchbull. So
yeah, that's the scene that I remember from the movie is her like dancing around the house while all the stuff floating around her.
Things are flying around her, and she's dancing to music,
and that didn't happen in the book, but I also think that at the end of the movie, they were suggesting that she still had all those powers.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah. Where the book, like, they just went away because she didn't need them.
Yep, she didn't need them anymore.
Well, she was using her brain for other things, knowledge, which is good because this could have been a much, much worse situation. This book she could have become a villain.
Easily.
It actually made me go ahead and rewatch, what's that movie where the kid is an alien? Yeah, Brightburn. Yeah, I watched that. Because I read this and I was like, actually, no, I want to read that. I want to watch that. So then I watched Brightburn because I was like, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I watched Brightburn recently with Haley. It was pretty good. I've seen it before, but it's an interesting movie. That whole shit, yeah. I don't want to spoil Brightburn for people that haven't seen it.
I haven't seen Brightburn.
Oh, it's good.
Isn't that a few years old? Didn't it come out a few years ago?
Yeah.
Where it's basically a Superman story, just if the Superman was like evil or didn't have the like parental guidance to use his powers for the good of humanity.
He still his parents are still very much John and Martha Kent. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, it's they aren't those characters, but they're very much like that. Okay. You know what I mean? They live on a farm.
He's different. His mentality is different.
What his reaction?
That's part of the movie.
Yeah,
that's part of the movie. Just watch it. It's not super long, so
bitch, I might
an hour and a half long. Yeah, it's a short one.
But yeah, so this she could have went way worse, but luckily she got paired with Miss Honey in the end. So
she was just mischievous. She wasn't really evil. She really was mischievous.
Yeah, and she was also neglected because her parents, assholes.
Oh yeah.
her dad was a straight up criminal.
Right.
I looked up because I was like, I've heard about putting sawdust in a crankshaft before, and that used to be like way back in the day. That was a thing that was common. Like people did that because they thought that it helped. But what it did is it ran smoother for about 3,000 miles, and then it would thicken up the oil in the crankshaft and cause it to deteriorate really quickly. So that is a thing that you can do. And then turning the
odometer back with
the odometer. I don't know how true that is.
So I
probably not in cars made anytime around the present.
Yeah, I know of allegedly somebody was doing that years and years ago. I was like 19. But this dude, he had like 30,000 miles on this truck that he was driving an hour each way to work every day for years. And there was allegations from people because he would like pull his truck in and get with another guy and they'd all get down in there. And there was allegations that he was rolling back the odometer. So, yeah.
Yeah, used car dealers, you got to keep an eye on them.
This guy was just doing it because he would want to sell it eventually. You know what I mean? He wasn't doing it for, I don't know. He wasn't a used car dealer. He wasn't a dealer. He was just a...
I see.
Yeah.
You should have just unhooked the speedometer. That does the same thing.
Right. That might have been what they did. I don't know what it was that they did, but I know that there was talk about the fact that there's no way this dude's truck only had 30,000 some miles on it.
Well, then, you probably just unhook the speedometer so that it wouldn't...
Right. Odometer. That's an odometer, Josh.
Well, a lot of...
The odometers. Just unhook the odometers.
If you unhook
I personally
your
know
speedometer...
somebody who did that, and they had to unhook the speedometer for it to work, okay?
So they didn't know how fast they were going either?
Nope.
We did
not.
No means of gauging anything.
We had a RPM, and basically you had to gauge it based on which gear you were in and the RPMs. That is how it was done. It was not safe, but that's how it was done.
It sure as fuck sounds like whatever car this was didn't need to have low mileage.
It really didn't. That's why I didn't understand why the person did it. It made no sense. So, yeah. Whatever. It's fine. But anyway, so that is something that you can do. You can put sawdust in your crankshaft on older cars and make it sound good for about 3,000 miles.
To Graceland.
Let's not get going on that. Stick to Matilda. So she starts reading a lot. She even goes to the library by herself to get books because she's that determined to learn.
And it gives a list of the books that she's gone through, and some of them are real big heavy hitters. You got like Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice, The Invisible Man, Old Man and the Sea, just to name a few. And like she's just tearing through them at 5 years old.
It's funny how much her parents hate the idea of reading. But doesn't her dad at one point say he can't read? Or he's thinking that in his head, like, how dare she do something he can't do?
Something along those lines. I bet he probably can read. He just doesn't like read recreationally. Like
right.
He doesn't have the patience for it, or...
Well, they like the telly. They like TV.
Yep.
So.
Right.
Which is one of the major sins that Roald Dahl, kind of writes about in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He's not a big fan of the TV.
You know what's funny about Roald Dahl, too, is that, again, Trunchbull is very much like Roald Dahl, and Matilda is very much the type of child that Roald Dahl would see as the perfect child to have, right?
Absolutely.
Like, smart, to their point, manners, reads, does all the things that a child should do. Mm-hmm. Yet Trunchbull still hates Matilda. I think that's telling of Roald Dahl. I don't think it matters if the child is seen and not heard, or... Which makes you wonder why he writes so many kids' books.
It really does.
Maybe he was hoping that by writing books like that, he would get kids to be like, yeah, I'm going to be like Matilda. I want to read books all the time. And I mean, like, that'd be great if that worked, but I don't think that's, too simple a solution.
Matilda also has other things that aren't like just superpowers, but they are helpful. It seems like she has a photographic memory with being able to do the times tables like she is able to do.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, and she really can't explain how she does the math. She just like does it because a calculator can do it. Why can't I?
Yeah. So just her brains alone are a superpower.
Super brains.
But man, the way that she gets back at her parents, flippin' love it, dude. It's so fun. She sticks a parrot up the chimney.
Oh, yeah.
Convinces them it's a ghost. It's great.
The hair dye.
The hair dye, the super glue with the hat.
Mm-hmm. And those are all in retaliation for times where her dad was really mean to her.
Yeah, they were all, that's the thing, they're all deserving punishments. And they're not over the top. They're just, fun kid pranks. But yeah, they still definitely do the job, especially the peroxide in the hair. Man, that's so fun. Because when you put peroxide in your hair, it doesn't go white per se. It definitely does lighten. Yeah, it goes yellow. Sometimes orange.
Yeah, to get the
I might
white
know from personal experience.
To get the white, you have to use some kind of like silvering or bluing agent. I don't remember what it is, but Justin tried to do it years ago
and wound up with an orange mess.
No, he got his pretty white.
Did he get it pretty white?
Yeah. It was really light yellow. Mine was bright yellow. I did the bleach the hair thing too. And
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember coming home that night. That was
late 90s,
interesting.
2000s kind of craze of dudes wanting to bleach their hair.
Uh-huh.
Didn't you do it because you wanted to be like Eminem?
I don't know if I did it because I wanted to be like Eminem, but I definitely, like any fucking 19, 20-year-old that is into something, was like, hey, I want to do that too.
Yeah. Eventually it just became the tips, like just the spiky,
frosted tips.
The frosted tips, yeah. Rather than like the whole bleach job, the entire head of hair.
Well, I think the frosted tips came because people kept realizing that when you bleach your hair and you have dark brown or black hair, it's immediately going to show like 6 days later.
That's what happened with me. I would get my hair bleached when it was short, and then I'd have like, bleach hair for about a month, and then I'd have frosted tips for a while.
Right.
Unless I decided to go another color, in which case, I did blue. So that was an interesting time. And then the fact that somebody other than Matilda attempted to play a trick on Miss Trunchbull, what was she thinking? Seriously. There's no good would come of that.
They do quite a bit to establish that you don't want to mess with Miss Trunchbull. Like, there's an older girl in school that tells Matilda and her friend Lavender from class about the chokey, which is just like a little closet or like a coffin or whatever that with like nails and shards of glass like on the inside of it to make sure you don't sit down or lean against the sides. Or,
it's like an Iron Maiden.
Like an Iron Maiden. That's what I was looking for. Yeah.
The chokey's like an Iron Maiden. Yeah.
Chokey's an Iron Maiden. She has a fucking Iron Maiden that she puts children in.
I know.
This is a Roald Dahl wet dream right here.
The worst part is that she doesn't even use it, like call it the punish name that she should, because it would literally be called the pokey. Because it's gonna poke you.
The poke, yeah, that would be a
way better name.
for it.
That would make more sense.
Why does she call it the chokey? I don't know.
Also, the pokey is another name for jail. So there you go.
Missed opportunity there, Rolled.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have too much hate in your heart to have good puns.
The part where she makes the kid eat the chocolate cake.
That just made me want chocolate cake. I wanted some chocolate cake.
Right. I remember
that.
watching the movie too, and I wanted some of that chocolate cake. It was fucking delicious looking. But yeah, that part right there, I was like, this is like bit for bit from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's from the book.
No, I'm pretty sure Roald Dahl wrote it based on the movie.
Yeah. He based his 1988 book on the 1996 movie.
Roald Dahl created the Dahl Till valve. He was a pilot in World War II, a famed time traveler.
And famed anti-Semite.
Yeah.
And proponents of child abuse.
Piece of shit.
But this Bruce Bogtrotter kid, stole a piece of chocolate cake. So Miss Trunchbull calls this big assembly for the whole school to watch him eat an entire giant chocolate cake. And he does it. He finishes it. And the Trunchbull just kind of storms off and is embarrassed. I don't know why she trying to find if that's really what she did. Because I would think that she would.
She did, because he triumphs.
She smashed the plate over his head, but he was too full to even feel it.
Well, and everybody was like cheering for him and everything.
Everyone was cheering for him, yeah. But she just kind of ran off embarrassed instead of like pressing on his gut and making him throw it up again. I don't know.
She should have had 2 cakes.
She should have had a backup cake
Bam.
for if he finished the first one.
Now
you
finish
must
this.
eat another. But yeah, she also throws a little girl like an Olympic hammer, and she like does her weekly class visit to Matilda's class, and like when one of the boys can't answer a math problem correctly, she like picks him up by the ears and just dangles him.
Stretches them. She says they'll never tear off. Ears just stretch.
Mm-hmm. And there's like a boy with long hair that she just like grabs him by the hair. So yeah, he's living out some child abuse fantasies here through this character
For sure. But Trunchbull is, they make clear that she's a nasty, nasty person.
Yeah, while making it clear that she deserves to get hers.
Yeah.
Especially when we find out about Miss Honey, because she's actually related to Miss Trunchbull, and Miss Trunchbull has been controlling her almost her entire life. She made her basically be a maid until she was able to finally get out from underneath of her because a kindly old farmer let her live in this little shack, which we find out from Matilda when she goes to her house for the first time. And there's like just boxes.
Yeah, there's like no furniture. There's only like a little oil stove to heat and cook food or whatever, or boil water for tea.
It's only 10 pence a week, though.
Yeah, only 10 pence a week for rent.
Which I don't even think is reasonable in 1988.
What, you think it should have been more?
I think in 1988 it would have been more. I think Roald Dahl was showing his disconnection from real life at that point. Beyond. Or he was basing it in a different time.
Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, Trunchbull was only allowing Miss Honey to have £1 per week out of her pay and just taking the rest.
It's pretty crazy too. Like, how does that happen?
Well, in 2018, 10 pence was 12.6 cents. So
Jesus. 12,
not terrible.
12.6 cents a week. Yeah, that farmer was giving it away.
Yeah, for sure.
It's probably some hipster couples out there who would pay like $1,000 a month
For a little shack like that.
for just a quaint little cottage.
Oh my god, look at this little oil stove. It's the only way to heat this place. This is beautiful.
I love it. It's just cottage core everywhere you look.
Yeah.
Totally off the grid.
Totally off the grid. Oh, could you just? So yeah, don't let the hipsters find out about that cottage.
Far too cheap for 1988.
Far too cheap. 12.6 American cents a week. What is that farmer thinking? Anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, when Matilda finds out all this, she starts coming up with a plan. She, in her head, she figures that she's going to get back at Miss Trunchbull and help out Miss Honey.
With her magic powers, she suddenly started grasping.
Which again could have went way worse, but luckily she did have the tutelage of Miss Honey to help her.
I was just saying that if I found out that being angry is what gave me those powers, I just would have stayed angry. Why give up the powers? You know what I'm saying?
I don't think it was the anger. I think it was her brain power because it wasn't being utilized by other knowledge.
Well, it was the anger in conjunction with the brain power.
Right.
But yeah, I also don't understand why she got rid of her power.
I think it said that like the brain power was being so stifled, it was just like laser focused. And after she was in a situation where it wasn't being stifled anymore, like she was more free to be who she is. She doesn't use her powers anymore. She isn't able. I don't know if it says she's able to use her powers anymore. Or she just chooses not to. I think it was that she couldn't.
She couldn't. She said that she tried, and she just doesn't get that feeling behind her eyes that she would get before with
the hatred,
or the fingers pushing out from her eyes. She didn't have that feeling anymore.
The demonic hatred.
And Matilda is a Sith Lord. Darth librarian. Darth Tilda.
I was thinking it was more like telekinesis or like Professor X.
But I think it should be more telekinesis like that game Psyops. Remember those?
Oh god, I love that fucking game so
Remember that
much.
game?
I love that game, Harold. You know how much I love that fucking game. I have it on my PS2 hard drive right now, which is in Michigan.
Psyops. Never played that one.
I love that fucking game. It's so good. You could take over people's brains and make them jump into a pit. So fun.
Matilda.
Psyops Matilda.
Edition.
Yeah, Psyops Matilda.
Psytilda.
I seem to remember from back in the day, like the powers being more in the story, or like more of
In the movie, they
like,
are.
yeah,
In the
like
movie, the powers
it happens
are
a lot
of
more
deal.
in the story, yeah,
Yeah.
because like it's just like it's the first time where she tips over the glass, and then like after class she stays and like can purposefully like knock over the glass for Miss Honey to prove that she can do it.
Right. What she does in the book.
Yeah, like I thought there was like more time of using her powers in that way, but really it's only like the last third or last quarter of the book.
Yes. And because there's the whole scene in the movie where she's flying stuff around, and I feel like it happens more often. Like the powers were a big part.
They come up with more things for her to use her powers to do in the movie, yeah.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Yeah. Some things are better in film, some things are better in books.
Yeah, obviously you want visually impressive things to happen more in movies.
Well, in 1996, that time right there, they were starting to come up with new special effects. They were always every new movie that came out had something going on with its special effects. You know what I mean? So I know that was big at the time. So
even 3,000 Miles to Graceland had that stupid scorpion fight at the beginning with two metal CGI scorpions. Made no sense at all.
Or The Mummy Returns with the Rock's awesome scorpion.
The Scorpion King.
So bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Peak CGI.
Luckily, they used practical effects from Matilda, if I remember correctly. Just use strings.
It seems like they would have, yeah.
I don't know. I want to track that
I'm
movie
excited
down.
to watch that.
Yeah, I want to track it down and watch it for the reiterated.
Yeah, we're
for
gonna have to
sure.
watch that together.
As well as the musical, because I want to see what's up with the musical.
Yeah.
That one's easier to see. It's just on Netflix. And I think the 96 movie was on Netflix until recently.
Very possibly. It's not anymore. It's not on anything.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, you have to buy it or rent it.
Yeah. Might keep my eyes open for it in the next few weeks if I go like thrifting or garage sales or whatever. We'll have to see if anybody's getting rid of a copy of Matilda.
Yeah. Now, I'm super excited to watch it because it's been a long time, but I know I've seen it a lot, and it was even while going through the book, there were parts where I'm like, it was hard to even like, was that what happened? Like I was almost so set on what should happen next. And I guess I was more amazed though, like I said, about how beat for beat it really was with the movie. We'll have to see. But
yeah, I seem to remember it being pretty faithful to the subject matter, or to the source material.
Yep. Which, I mean, might make sense. I don't know. We'd have to find out if, like, Danny DeVito's a Roald Dahl fan or something like that. He might be. He might have liked those books. Maybe not the guy, but the books. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And
I mean, I like the books, but not necessarily a fan of what Roald Dahl had to say.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote for children, and like this book is very good. It's like, you don't have, just because you're smart, that doesn't mean that you're bad. It means, you can use that for good, even if you are a little mischievous. You come up with better pranks.
Right. And then even though you are a child, you're not all innocence and fluffy rainbows and shit. You can be a monster.
Right. Yeah.
Matilda not necessarily was, but like at the very beginning of the book, he's talking about how a lot of parents see their children as perfect little angels, when really they're just little demons that need to be punched in the face.
Yep.
Not those words exactly, but
no. But he was saying that, you have to sit there and listen to people go on and on about their kid who, basically the kid's over there eating glue and they're like, my little Timmy. And you're like, oh my God.
I just want to punch this little shit in the throat.
He's chugging Elmer's.
Paste is delicious. It's got sugar. That's literally why kids would eat it, is because it was sugar paste.
Andy, so. I don't know if you remember this kid, but I'll never forget him. But
yeah,
in 3rd grade in Mrs. Schulteis's class, we had this kid who would sit there and he would literally like take the Elmer's glue and he would like dump it in his mouth. He would like squeeze it in his mouth and like eat it.
I think I recall, yeah.
And then there was a day that he got in trouble and the teacher came over, or I don't know if it was Mrs. Schulteis or that substitute we had for like half the year, came over and lifted his desk, and in his pencil tray, he had it full of Elmer's glue and he was taking gobs of it on his finger and like eating it. And that's how she caught him. And I'll never forget it. I don't remember what his name was or anything, but like, I'm just like, in 3rd grade, I was like, why is he eating glue?
I think I remember what his name is, but I'm not gonna out him on the show.
Don't out him. Did he stay with you for the duration of school?
I believe so. Yeah.
Was he as was he as lightning quick the whole time?
Lightning quick the whole time?
I'm being sarcastic. Was he as lightning quick the whole time?
No, I think he wound up in special ed program.
Okay. Well, now I feel bad.
Shout out to that guy.
Couldn't have been the glue.
Wherever you are. Anyways.
Yeah.
Matilda was not that.
No. Roald Dahl would have hated that kid though.
Yeah.
No, Matilda was wonderful. So wonderful that when her parents decided to leave because they were criminals, she decided to go to Miss Honey, and Miss Honey was like, yeah, I'll take her. Of course, she's perfect.
Yeah, the law was on to Mr. Wormwood and his crooked dealings, and they were on their way, so they had to flee the country, and they fled to Spain.
Which is, of course, where you go.
I'm pretty sure extradites to Britain. So, makes no sense going to Spain unless they're hiding out.
According to the book, it's they said they're running off to Spain where they can't get him. So I don't know.
That's probably where the criminals.
Maybe at the time they didn't extradite, but
so maybe.
Yeah, he wasn't in trouble with the law. He was in trouble with criminals.
Well, they don't actually say who he's in trouble with. They just say he's in trouble.
Miss Honey says that he works with criminals. It was only a matter of time. I assume it's the criminals he's in trouble with, and they extradite from anywhere.
I don't know.
That's true. I was thinking it was like, oh, he's working with criminals, therefore the police have caught on to him, and that's why he's running. We just came to the different conclusions.
Yeah.
I think the book kind of led to like he is the criminal.
He is a criminal, but he works with criminals, and I figured that it was that he had screwed over somebody and they were on to him. That's how I took it as, but maybe it could be the other way around. Either way, they're running.
Right.
Do they ever say the parents' names?
Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood.
Yeah, I think
Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood.
I think it's just Mr. and Mrs. Wormwood.
Oh, Wormwood, we gotta get out of here. The cops are on to us. I'll take the Mustang.
She also had a brother, but he was
He's mentioned twice, I think.
He's like a big nothing. Like, there's just one scene in the book where, like, his dad was trying to get him to add up all his profits for the day, and he was just kind of writing them down, and he wanted him to do the math because he was going to join him in the car business one day. But Matilda's all like, well, I know the answer. It's blah, 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 blah. You made this much. And that's what led to him getting a canary up the chimney. Parrot up the chimney. Thank you.
I remember there being a brother from the movie too, because he was often in kids' movies at that time.
Oh, I take it back. That whole math scene led to him getting the platinum blonde treatment.
Yeah, I think that the canary or the parrot came later, didn't it?
The parrot came because he ripped up a library book.
Oh, so okay, yeah.
This is before the math, and the hat and the super glue came because Matilda was pointing out that what he does with the cars is illegal.
Oh, yep. Yeah, but overall, this was a great book.
So anyways, yeah, wonderful story. A lot of great themes. Reading, obviously, A plus. Go do it.
For sure. It's very good.
The number one theme is focus your anger so you get superpowers.
Ooh, yeah.
But reading is a close second.
Read a lot and let your hate consume you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
It may manifest in a million small hands beaming out from your eyes, a million invisible hands reaching out and tipping over water glasses and writing cryptic messages.
I gotta say, I loved that description, by the way. We've mentioned
that was
it
a really good
times,
description.
But I wanted to, it's like, what a way to think of it or like imagine it. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that son of a bitch was a pretty good author.
Again, the Twits was my first quote unquote big kid book that I ever read. So,
and he was also a decent head injury valve creator.
Decent inventor of a head spigot.
One medical device.
Yeah.
He knew how to tap a cranium, that's for sure.
So yeah, I think I can safely say that we all recommend this book, and
It's pretty safe to say.
Yeah, I'd recommend the
Imagine.
book.
yeah, for sure, we recommend it. Go read
Good
it.
book.
Watch
Good
the
book.
movie.
Thumbs up. You can't see me, but I'm giving it a thumbs up.
Yeah, watch
up
watch
there.
the movie for sure too, because it's a classic.
Right.
Speaking of reading, though, have you guys been reading anything lately?
Not really. Not since Matilda.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I happen to go to the largest bookstore in the country, possibly the world, in Portland, called Powell's Books. It was huge. It was super awesome. I highly recommend checking it out if you are ever in that part of the country.
There were tens of books there. It was the largest bookstore
Oh
in the
man,
country.
at least 10.
It is literally a square block each way. It is a full city block. They have a map. It's super fun. So I got Matilda there, and I got a couple stickers, and I found some other books, but I didn't. They weren't used. They were new. So I was like, I can wait. It's fine. I'll get them from thrift books. But
I'm
yeah.
not paying premium for this bullshit. It's
Eh,
not even a
who's-
movie.
new. Yeah. Well, they're the Dresden File books. They're kind of new, so I've been
Oh.
reading them. I enjoy the Dresden File. I just finished Peace Talks, and I just started on to Battlegrounds. So those are urban fantasy novels. If you enjoy urban fantasy, you probably have already read them. If not, I highly recommend the Dresden Files. So, but that's all I have for this week. What about you, Andy?
I found a very close to first edition print of The Shining at a garage sale, so that was kind of neat.
What's very close to first edition?
It's not first edition, but it's like probably first print.
Okay.
Or it's not first print, it's first edition, probably. I don't know. But it's like a copy of The Shining from the year it was first published. So
Okay.
that was a pretty neat find.
Heck yeah.
Let's finish this up. I'm hot. Let's go.
Well, I'm just now reading that there was a censorship controversy around Matilda, where the publisher was going to give the treatment that R.L. Stine got on some of his Goosebumps books, that they wanted to make more than 60 changes, including replacing references to Rudyard Kipling and Joseph Conrad with Jane Austen and John Steinbeck. Removing references to skin color, such as turning white, beginning to go dark red in the face, and white as paper. Removing or changing the words fat, mad, and crazy, such as changing wobbling crazily to wobbling unsteadily. Removing the word Madonna and changing heroine to hero.
I feel like I didn't hear that Joseph Conrad. I heard, or those two names. I got Jane Austen or Jane Eyre and
Jane Austen and John Steinbeck.
and John Steinbeck. Yeah.
Yeah, they replaced Rudyard Kipling and Joseph Conrad, probably because of problematic things that they wrote about. But I don't know. I don't think publishers should pretend that stories were written today. I think they should just
I don't think so either.
leave them as they were.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I get really tired of us all trying to pretend like history didn't happen. Like, well, maybe we forget about it.
And then we can just educate our kids better. Say, hey,
Yeah.
back in the 1980s, they were still held in pretty high esteem. But I mean, and it's really confusing when you get to like removing references to skin color, because turning white is like a reference to like being scared or getting red in the face. It's when you get
When you're embarrassed,
really
yeah,
upset
that literally happens.
or embarrassed. Yeah.
Okay, so Joseph Rudyard Kipling, okay,
Rudyard Kipling.
he wrote The Jungle Book. But the reason that he fell out of favor is because he was a staunch jingo imperialist who said and wrote a lot of extremely problematic things about race and empire.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Like he was the colonizer through and through.
He died in 1936. And he was born in Mumbai, India in 1865. Like, why was he like that? Well, let's explain British imperialism in the 1800s, 1900s.
Or you just watch RRR, because that's what it's about.
But he was held up as a person of great literary standing through the 80s and 90s.
That's true. So
it would be, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a complicated world we live in.
It is, but everybody wants to try and be simple. Like, oh, nope.
Yeah.
Simple answers.
We go to some bad places and we try to make it as simple as possible.
Yes, sir.
Anywho, that's Matilda.
Matilda. Roald Dahl. Problematic Roald Dahl leads us to problematic Rudyard Kipling.
Yeah, at some point we can't even talk about Roald Dahl anymore.
Right.
So let's talk about him while we can. Anywho, that's our show. Next time on ReLiterated, we're going to revisit someone who we hope never shows herself to be another piece of shit. Beverly Cleary and her novel Beezus and Ramona.
I think that we're okay on Beverly Cleary.
Hopefully we're safe. Hopefully she's safe and good and in her, resting easy.
Oh my God, I just read that Beverly Cleary hid Nazis in Argentina.
What?
Yeah. Oh man.
White supremacist Beverly Cleary. No, I can't even finish that phrase with a straight face.
It's now known as Mouse in the Motorcycle.
Oh gosh. All right. Okay. So that's next episode.
All right.
Please don't dig up any dirt on Beverly Cleary until then. Support your local libraries. Give a shit. Read some lit.
Bob Zherko, that's ReLiterated.
thanks, everybody.
This has been ReLiterated, a production of the Chocolate Milk Friends and part of the 989 Podcast Network. If you enjoy our show, please consider giving us support by subscribing, recommending us to your book reading, podcast listening, 90s nostalgic friends, and most importantly, rating and reviewing us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Audible Podcasts, and Spotify. Did I mention we really want some Spotify ratings right now? Your ratings and reviews go a long way towards getting us in the ears of new listeners. You're also invited to join the growing ReLiterated community on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. And if you really want to get nuts, we have a Discord too. So bing us and join us in this nonsense. If you have a book suggestion for a future episode or have questions for us, send us an email at reliterated@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.